If you are like me, I love browsing through different websites, Reddit, and going over where the World of Warcraft community is, and what they feel about the current state of the game, which honestly everyone can agree, and I've said this so many times. The gameplay is fantastic. I really love where they're at. Everything feels great, balanced. For the most part, again, I don't do much end game content, and the reason is the second portion is the lore. Where's the lore gone? Where's it at as a community? And what does the community feel like it needs adjustment? So I always thought this was an interesting article on Reddit, of course. Does anyone else ever think about how bad Warcraft lore has gotten? Meta discussion, not bad faith, comments allowed, which they shouldn't be. We should be coming from a place of love for the game, pure love. I I've been playing this game, and I've said this many times since Burning Crusade. I snuck into my brother's bedroom when he was working overnights and got on his computer and played it, and it just, I played D&D for years, and it meshed together my love for gaming, my love for role playing into one place, and I love the game. So this is a good place to start. It's just so fascinating to think about how Blizzard allowed it to get this bad. Do you think we can ever recover, or do you think it will be a joke forever now? Well, I don't think it's a joke. I think there are people. That's where it gets kind of funny, because people think that they're doing this on purpose or something. No, there's people who love this game that unfortunately just aren't that creative, and they were put in charge of the creative for World of Warcraft, and they botched it. I mean, people can just miss. They could try really hard, have a good support system, and I know we like to think about all these different things that happens that causes things to go down the road that it is now, but maybe they just tried and missed, and that's okay. The problem is where we don't fix it. I really wish people that make threads like these actually experienced the Burning Crusade's awful lore and how badly it retconned Warcraft 3. Come on, not really. It was a jumble, but it it made sense if you knew where it was going. They had so much content, and they wanted to put out as much as possible. Again, for the love of the game, so it wasn't perfect, but it was good. So Illidan is the bad guy now and fighting the Alliance, Horde, and Shatarath. Blizzard, yes. Players, why? The one thing I should excuse me for the 1 second. That's not true at all. Illidan had always been fighting for one thing, which is to stop the Burning Legion. And he was going to do whatever it took to do it. The Burning Legion chose that time to make it seem like it was Illidan. There's a bunch of videos out there talking about this. I really think you should go watch some of those other channels. Bellar has a great one. Noble has a great one. As someone that experienced Burning Crusade, I don't think it was nearly as detrimental to the story as Shadowlands. Ding, ding, ding. This thread's going to always go back to Shadowlands. It's always the same thing. It's always Shadowlands. And that's because it was a tipping point where they had a lot of loose threads get tied up in such a terrible way. Burning Crusade ruined a few characters and retconned some comparatively minor facets of the story, like Draenei being the same race as Eredar. Shadowlands rewrote the history of the entire universe and imposed a lame puppet master behind all the important events in the game's history. That could have worked. The jailer could have worked. It was just too fast. The jailer should not have died at the end of Shadowlands, or they should have made Shadowlands a longer expansion and really filled it out. They pushed it. And that's why it didn't make any sense. You had nothing invested. If they really broke down the story and made it really fill out on why he was pulling the strings and not just a big bad guy. And plus, the biggest complaint is a lot of the bad guys throughout World of Warcraft's history were the hero of their own story. Illidan. But the jailer, he's just bad. He's just evil. He's Dr. Evil. Right. Let's see here. I blame budgetary constraints, gameplay, story, and cut content. I don't believe Blizzard intended to develop a cosmos of lore in Shadowlands the way it turned out, but there's just too much introduced that they couldn't expand upon. I just said that. Thank you for stealing what I just said. No. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Way too much in a short amount of time. They didn't let it breathe. Sometimes we feel like we don't get content in World of Warcraft, and it's because they don't know what to do or they're working on something else. But, I mean, any good storyteller will tell you, sometimes you have to let things breathe and sit, and there's certain small, minute details that you miss the first time you go through, the second time, the third time, so they want you to go through the same story 4 or 5 times. And I think it's fun. That's why World of Warcraft is the game it is. It's repeat play. I know a lot of people love just in-game, one character, and you should, and that's okay. I love alts. I really have the most fun re-going through the content, looking at the story from all the great things Blizzard has done throughout the years, all the small Easter eggs that you find, and they're awesome. I mean, it's hard to blame an entire company when the last, 3 expansions lore was basically vetoed in by one guy. I don't know about that. Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands lore were detrimental to the past stories and characters. It makes me sick how they did the Uther Arthas story in Shadowlands. Yes. There was so many ways that you could have done that better. So many ways the character deserved. Honestly, they didn't just do Arthas dirty. They did Jaina Proudmoore dirty. They did Sylvanas dirty. Sylvanas coming full circle and having her redemption, it cannot happen until she has her face-off with Arthas. And that doesn't mean it have to be a fight, but there has to be some sort of face-off. Everything about her was defined about how much she hated Arthas and what he turned her into and how she deserved death, but he didn't give it to her. Jaina just watched the blue fart go by her face, even though that was her boy, that was her man. Literally 3 months before Warcraft 3 happened, they were still a thing. 3 months or 3 years, I can't remember. It's too much. The lore of the expanded cosmos is not going away, so the game would probably have to spend every new expansion going through every detail to smooth out each of the lore's rough edges. They've done that a little already with the Titans and the Emerald Dream this expansion, so I'm hopeful for more cleanup. Well, keep hoping, buddy. That's what happens when you retcon consistently without good reason because you don't believe in your new addition to the lore to be able to stand out on its own, so you pretend the one guy has been behind everything regardless of cases where it just doesn't make sense because you lack faith in your writing and it also are kind of lazy. Eventually stuff stops making sense. Well, I'll get to some of that. Also, trying to explain everything is taking away from the mystery. Also, the devs thinking you gotta fight super gods every expansion for the interest to become boring and silly. More suitable threads of stability can often be more interesting than consistent world-ending threats. Well, right. But I think what you're trying to say there is that Sylvanas couldn't stand on her own. She could. Absolutely, she could. if it's done right. I don't think it should have been the jailer. I think that was a bad call. I think it should have been Sylvanas. I think having her go down a complete cycle of self-destruction and hatred for humanity, the living, because of what Arthas did to her, I think that would have been perfect. Imagine her going and all of her power is derived from her enslaving Arthas' soul, and it's not enough, so then she has to get Anduin's soul, and she has to get all these heroes throughout Azeroth's soul to give her more power. And she can still redeem herself from that, but that would have been so much better than just the jailer. Now, I do like some of the storylines of where all the souls that are going in to the different areas of the Shadowlands just get redirected to the Maw. I mean, that's cool. Shadowlands had some really cool lore facets to it. It just needed room to breathe. I think there's a couple things. One, threats to get bigger and bigger and literally fighting gods. Two, they had to start moving past the Warcraft lore, which means killing off... No, you didn't. You did not need to move past the Warcraft lore. The game is called World of Warcraft. You can create continuing lore. You don't have to move past it. The new lore feels out of place, but against Warcraft 3 and Vanilla WoW, you can create... No, you don't even have to mention Warcraft 3 Vanilla. They've done so much world building since then. You can continue to build off what they've already done. Battle for Azeroth created a monster in Sylvanas. Apparently the Horde just gets all the monsters. I'm not saying that's right. It's just what happens. So they should have expanded upon that. Siege of Orgrimmar was awesome. Well done. Created a baddie. He got out of control. It was really funny seeing him in Shadowlands and how everybody's all, I'm sorry, and he's like, nope, I am who I am. I'm Rage. You guys suck. I'm Garrosh. I'm awesome. And that's pretty much the end of the thread. It goes into a bunch of conjecture from there. Just interesting going through these different pages and listening to everybody pretty much all agree that Shadowlands could have been good if they let it breathe. And I think with the return of Chris Metzen, we might get... I don't think Chris is going to come in and retcon things. That doesn't make any sense. That's bad storytelling. He's a world builder. I think he's going to slow things down to the next phase of World of Warcraft. So that way it makes sense. Legion was fantastic. It was the ending of an era. And we've got a couple, 3 or 4 expansions since then, which with different people. We just need to slow down, let it breathe, and know that the best villains are the hero of their own story. Look at Thanos. Thanos was awesome because he thought he was the hero. And, we don't have heroes, at least none that are flawed, that make themselves relatable. Relatable heroes and relatable villains is a good story. There's a book called The Journey. I can't remember the name of the book, but it outlines the journey of a hero, and there's like different levels of it. It's a great read. Highly recommend using that as a way to build your hero story. Anyways, more to come.